All right, welcome back to the Big Dog Podcast, where compressed air isn't just a utility. It's the heartbeat of how so many of us get things done. I'm Jason Reed, and with me as always is Lisa Saunders.
Hey y'all, good to be back. Today we're digging into the real deal value you can get with compressed air systems. If, you stop treating them like an afterthought and start thinking system-wide.
That's it. I gotta say, after all the places I've walked through, there's one mistake I see over and over. These point-of-use compressors scattered everywhere. It's like every time someone needed air, they just tossed in another little compressor next to the new machine or workstation. Next thing you know, you've got a whole zoo in there, and none of them are working together. They're loud, inefficient, barely reliable, and honestly, you end up spending more on repairs and energy than you save buying cheap up front.
Yeah, I remember we hit on this in a few earlier episodes. People thinking, hey, I'll just get what I need, where I need it. But once you centralize your system, you open up so many options for better control, lower maintenance, and way fewer headaches if something goes down. Mannington Mills, for example, they have their main base compressors, a trim unit to handle the peaks, and a backup ready to swing in if anything fails. That kind of redundancy saved them a huge chunk in downtime.
Exactly. Once you're running a multi-compressor setup, base load, trim, backup, you stop worrying about a single compressor bringing the plant to a halt. And with proper design, you also get to put the whole setup in an equipment room, away from where people are working.
Which brings up another big point, noise. I stopped by a food plant last month, and they'd centralized their compressors, moved them into a purpose-built space. The shop floor was actually quiet enough for workers to have a conversation, which, just for reference, is a rarity if you've ever been near a bunch of old reciprocating units. OSHA says 90 dBA is the recommended limit, and if you've got those things sitting right by your operators, yeah, good luck with that. But centralization handled the noise and improved workflow, since nobody had to weave around these old rumbling compressors every time they needed something shipped or fixed.
It's better for safety, better for maintenance access, and honestly, just better for sanity. And the reliability bump? Huge. Especially if you're following what we talked about in episode 8 with multi-compressor controls, load sharing, rotating units, all of which ups that system lifespan and keeps you up and running. So engineered solutions, they're not some sales pitch. They're what separates the shops crushing it on uptime and energy from everyone else struggling to patch things together.
That ties right into what's next. Making your system smarter by picking the right tech and sizing. Let's talk variable speed drive, or VSD, compressors for a second. They're like the darling of the rebate and energy-saving crowd. But I've seen more than one place get burned by putting a VSD in the wrong spot. There was a packaging plant I toured. Beautiful VSD rotary screw, fancy control panel, the works. Problem was, their demand profile was, not exactly what you'd want for a VSD. They ran it either at 20% or at 90% all the time, never in that sweet spot for VSDs to actually pay off. So the savings they hoped for didn't show up. Actually cost them more in the end with extra service calls and headaches.
I see that a lot. People just hear VSDs save energy and buy one without really understanding whether it fits their plant. Like, if you're always at the low or high end of its output, you'd be better off with a fixed speed machine. You want that VSD to cover the ups and downs, not just sit idling or screaming at full tilt.
And then, sizing. I gotta admit, I love this topic because people screw it up all the time. You get folks thinking, I might as well buy the biggest one I can, future-proofing. But with rotary screw compressors, too big is almost as bad as too small. You end up with cycling issues, wasted energy, and a machine that never reaches its efficient running point. It's the Goldilocks thing. Not too much, not too little, just right.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest pain points I see in the field. People overbuy thinking they're covering their bases, but it's just money down the drain. There's actually a sizing guide from Kaishin, and full disclosure, I use it all the time because having a clear handle on your plant's real air demand saves you a mountain of grief. And don't get me started on undersizing either. A short cycling compressor is a maintenance nightmare. That rapid cycling beats up the machine and shortens the lifespan real quick.
So that's why, if your demand keeps spiking or you notice your compressors cycling like crazy, get someone in, who actually lives and breathes compressed air. Even if it's just for a consultation, they'll help you figure out what actually fits instead of guessing your way through. The stuff's gotten technical between electronic controls, VSDs, demand mapping. It really helps to have a compressed air pro in your corner who can run the numbers and make sense of it all.
Totally agree. Building on what we talked about in episode 6, where we dug into BMS integration and data-driven troubleshooting, sometimes you just gotta admit it's out of the usual maintenance crew's skill set. No shame in calling for help.
And now for probably my favorite debate, oil-free versus oil-flooded compressors. Here's where you really gotta weigh what matters most for your shop or plant. Oil-free is a no-brainer for stuff like food, beverage, electronics, medical, all those spots where any bit of oil vapor would be a disaster. Kaishan's got the Croft oil-free rotary screw and the KCOF centrifugal. Both bring in crazy clean air, and honestly, the reliability on the new models is solid with things like low-maintenance self-cleaning filters and those super long service intervals. You need pharmaceutical grade, or you're feeding compressed air into sterile processes? Oil-free is pretty much your only option.
Yeah, but for everyone else, oil-flooded rotary screws are the workhorses. I was at a metal fab shop just last quarter. They asked if they had to upgrade to oil-free for their main air, but when we dug into their actual needs, it was totally overkill. Oil-flooded is simpler, runs cheaper in the long haul, and you can slap on filtration to take care of most uses. They saved a bundle sticking with oil-flooded, no change in air quality that mattered for their process, and longer service intervals too. I mean, you can't use them in places like food or pharma lines, but for most stuff, you just don't need to pay oil-free prices unless there's a hard requirement.
That's the trade-off, right? Oil-free means a bigger upfront spend and more regular maintenance, but you skip the risk of contamination. Meanwhile, oil-flooded keeps costs way down, handles temperature swings, is incredibly reliable, and as long as you're not feeding packaged lettuce or building semiconductors, oil levels down to 3 ppm are good enough for almost every other use. The Kaishan oil-flooded screws can even run 100% duty cycle, so you get performance and a compact setup.
And don't forget, with the new KROF and KCOF oil-free units, Kaishan's making oil-free more accessible than before. But still, there's always a balancing act. Think upfront budget versus long-term reliability, downtime risks, and what's really required for your specific application. No one-size-fits-all answer here.
You summed that up perfectly. If you're still on the fence, it's always worth talking to a compressed air expert who gets both worlds and isn't just pushing you to the most expensive solution. The right answer is the one that matches your end goals, regulatory needs, and frankly, your budget, without sacrificing reliability. All right, Jason, I think we've about run out of time on this one. Big thanks to everyone listening. Seriously, if you need help sorting through the oil-free versus oil-flooded debate, or want to talk system design, find your local air pro or reach out to Kaishan for advice. We'll be back soon with another deep dive. Jason, signing off?
Absolutely. Thanks, Lisa, and thanks to everyone who stuck with us. We'll catch you next time on the Big Dog Podcast. Take care, Lisa.
Later, Jason, and thanks everyone. Stay sharp out there.